There's anything you need to know about Nick or I, it is that if we want to do something, we're going to do it, even if we have no idea how to do it. That's how we started our business. That's how we are here. That's embroidery, literally everything. Welcome to Life Unleashed,
the podcast all about creating the best life for you and your furry best friend.
If you're a dog mom on the go, juggling life, work, and the endless joys of being a dog parent, then you're in the right place. I'm Dani.
And I'm Nick.
And together with the incredible dog mom community from Tails Up Pup, we're here to share advice, stories, and the obsession we have over the love for our dogs.
Get ready to laugh, learn, and lean on each other because life with your dog just got even more awesome.
So I had this theory, and I thought it was a wild theory, and then I saw a video about it. So now I feel like I have to talk about it.
What is this theory?
This is a very random way to start this podcast, but you know what? I'm giving the fun things to chat about today.
Is this a conspiracy theory that like one of the ones that you have?
It's a Dani-spiracy.
A Dani
But
spiracy.
apparently I'm not the only one because this other girl was talking about it. And I was like, I had that conspiracy and now she does too. So we're going to talk about it.
Well, for anyone that doesn't know Danielle, she is gets very drawn into the conspiracy theories, particularly like some of the weird ones.
I'm the type of person that if you give me like the facts of what you believe in, I can easily be swayed to also believe what you believe. And then like the other person might rebuttal and then I'll be like, oh wait, yeah, now I'm on that side. But like if you just come at like the argument with these facts, I'm definitely gonna be like, oh wait, that is true.
I also think like as most of us, if the person you're listening to is convicted about it, like, and they have their facts, if you're like X, Y, and Z, because this, and this, and they're really passionate, like you really fall for that.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Okay.
If you're a dog mom and you're about to have a baby, there's a way to predict the gender of your baby.
No.
Yes.
I already am telling you no way. But okay, let's hear it.
Your human child is going to be the opposite gender of what you got your dog. So like if you have a girl dog, your first baby is going to be a boy.
What if you have a girl and a boy dog?
Then you don't know. You cannot predict.
Yeah, you'd have to have.
There are rarely people that I feel like people are so passionate about having a male dog or a female dog that it's pretty rare to have someone who's like, oh, I don't care, I just picked a random one. Like a lot of people are passionate about it.
Have you put this theory through like a stress test with your friends?
Yes, but there is one outlier. Actually, I think there might be two outliers. So there are a few outliers and you can't explain those. But
are you the only one? This is
no, this is like a true thing. Okay.
You cannot believe everything you read on the internet.
There's going to always be outliers. There's no theory in all of land that is like true.
Do they give a reason for why? This
was my theory.
I thought you said you saw this.
Well, I did.
So
but it was just a girl like me saying the same exact thing that I had already thought this, and now she also thought this.
Oh, I see.
And she also had a few outliers.
She validated what your previous thought was.
So you guys will have to let us know if this holds up to your life or people you know.
Does it work the opposite way?
I know what the outliers have in common.
What?
The outliers are twins. So if you have twins, you don't fit in.
So it's only for just single babies?
Yes. If you are having, and it's your first baby. It doesn't mean like you'll always have the opposite gender. Your first baby, yeah,
is going to be the opposite gender.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Except in situations of twins.
Yep.
Then
there you go.
Then it throws it off.
Yep. Okay. Anyways, do you have any fun chats before we get into the purpose of this podcast?
No, you've thrown me off with this weird conspiracy theory of yours, and now I'm just like, my mind is thinking like, what are, you know, that I was true for this. My parents had a girl dog, and then they had a boy first.
Yep. Same with mine.
What the heck?
Same with us. Yep. Okay, but you did recently announce you were writing a book. So do you want to share any fun things about that?
Well, my book progress is coming along. I'm writing a medieval fantasy, which is really fun.
Wait, that's a announcement. You haven't put that out there yet.
I actually casually dropped that on Facebook the other day in a comment. Someone asked,
a lot of them follow you on Instagram.
Someone asked, what is it about? And I said that.
Wait, yeah. I wanted a grand reveal.
So I have to bleep this out?
Yes. No, I'm just kidding. But maybe on Instagram you could do a grand reveal.
I mean, I could do a grand reveal. Like if you're listening to this now, you're kind of like an insider of insiders. So
yeah.
It's a medieval fantasy. I'm actually pretty far along. I've been really sticking to, my goal has been to write 1,000 words a day. Like that's kind of like the minimum goal. A lot of days I've exceeded that. Like my weekly totals have been really more like, instead of if 7 days a week, that'd be 7,000 words. I'm more like in the 9,000s most of the weeks. So I'm like 62,000 words in right now. My goal is to hit 100,000 words, which I actually think I'm going to struggle to like keep it at that cap. I think I might go over. But so that means that I'm like getting pretty close. I'm like, if it is 100,000 words, I'm 62% done. So that's
crazy.
Now, not done with the whole book in the sense that it's going to be done with my first draft. And like,
this is a fun fact. Nick actually hasn't read his book back to himself. Like, he's writing all of his ideas out and writing this book, but he hasn't actually read it through yet.
I did in the beginning. The first like 3 or 4 chapters I did, but then what was happening was I was getting too bogged down in like, spending the time rereading all my stuff and everything. Sometimes like when I go to sit back down to write, I basically read like the last paragraph or two that I've written, and then I just like start writing. And that's like the whole purpose, at least the way that I'm approaching it with my first draft, is like get the thoughts and everything down on paper. I already have my outline, so I know where it's going. I know that I'm kind of like checking off the ideas of like, okay, I've hit this part of my outline, I've hit this one. But like right now it's just getting the words down on paper, telling the story, and then there's going to be so much stuff in like the editing process for the second draft. That's when I'll really go back there and critique like, yeah, there's a lot of plot holes here, like this doesn't seem to work, and I'll have to make all those changes. But the last like 4 to 5, maybe 7 chapters, I guess I haven't really spent a lot of time going back and rereading all the way through the chapter and like doing that. I think you could get so caught up in the editing that, at least my personality, I'm trying to just get it done.
I'm sure like one of the most burning questions that people have is, what are you going to do with this book? Like, are you planning to sell it, or like, I don't know. What are you doing with the book?
Well, right now it's like I'm really doing it like for me. And so
But like for a lot of people, I feel like that'd be wild. Like, why would you write a whole book just because?
Well, it's kind of like I could ask them about any of their own hobbies. Why do you do that? Just because it's fun. I really enjoy it. It's like, if you go play basketball, you play pickleball or whatever. It's like, are you going pro in pickleball? Are you trying to go pro? And it's like, no, I just enjoy pickleball, or, like about really any hobby.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm not necessarily trying to go pro. I think, definitely it would be super cool if like one day it got published and it was something that people could go buy and things like that. I'm definitely not saying that like I wouldn't do that. That would be really cool. But like that's not really my aspiration for writing this book. Actually, when I sat down to go write it, it was really just going to be a creative outlet and fun, and I didn't even think I would announce it to anyone. But like I'm someone that needs that accountability, which
Are
is
you
why
glad you announced it?
Yes. Well, I've been doing like my weekly writing updates, and that like really does keep me like every night when I'm sitting down, like if, I'm like, oh, I don't know that I necessarily want to do this tonight. It's like, nope, you said you were going to do it. Follow through on your goals.
Did announcing it put any type of pressure on you?
No, I don't think slight pressure, but it's not been a bad pressure.
I feel like you have gotten such like positive feedback and people who are like truly interested. So that's been really fun for like me to see for you. Also, this is not meant to be offensive, but you called it a medieval fantasy. And like, to me, that sounds like really boring. Like I would never want to. And I have read parts of his book and I think it's so good. So I'm just saying, like, don't be turned away by the words medieval fantasy, because it's really good.
Well, I'm totally like the type of person that like, I'm sure if I sat down with like a literary agent, they'd probably like try to come up with a much better terminology for like how to categorize my book. I'm like so new to all this. Is the reason I say medieval fantasy is like it's kind of set in like that, old time, like I imagine like medieval England of kind of like it's castles and things like that. But
if you are listening to this podcast, you know us, follow us in some way. And if there's anything you need to know about Nick or I, it is that if we want to do something, we're going to do it, even if we have no idea how to do it. That's how we started our business. That's how we are here. That's embroidery, literally everything. And so I feel like a lot of people hear like, oh, he's writing a book. Like, how? Like, it seems like such a big thing, and it is a really big thing. So for like a lot of people, they're like, how is he doing this? And the thing is, like you just said, you don't even know what you're doing.
No,
like you've read a lot of books.
Yeah.
And like everyone knows like,
but not that much fantasy actually.
Which is crazy. I just feel like it's, to you had this idea, you wanted to do it, and like really all you had to do is sit down and write. And if it becomes a thing, it becomes a thing. And if not, then like you still wrote a book. It's just not in a bound book like that. And even someone did tell Nick that he could get it bound just for himself, which is really cool.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of times society like is like like what I was saying about like going pro. It's like, oh, are you going to get it published? It's like, well, that would be cool, but that's not the reason that I'm doing this. I'm not trying to do this as like, you know, a job or a side income or anything like that. If it turns out to be those things, awesome. That's not like the purpose for doing it. It's like a fun side project that I'm really enjoying. And like you've seen me at night, like I really like going and sitting down and doing that. And like I'm always excited afterwards. I'm excited to go do it. And so that's been just really fun.
So the purpose of this podcast topic episode is non-negotiables in our life. So someone asked, can you talk on the podcast about how you got Callan to sleep? So that was like the purpose of what got my brain wheels going. And then I was like, okay, we could talk about non-negotiables as parents, but then like with your book and everything, I'm like, well, why don't we just talk about non-negotiables for our life? Because by far the biggest question that Nick has gotten so far, other than like, what is the genre of the book, is how do you have time to write a book? And that kind of fits into non-negotiables of our life. So should we start with the book one or the sleep one?
Well, I think we can start with the book one.
We're already here, so we might as well. But for us, like a non-negotiable is to have a solid hour of me time. And to us, even with that, working out isn't considered that hour.
No.
Like working out is a non-negotiable for us. And then also having 1 hour to do something that we want to do, that we enjoy doing, that isn't working out.
Before we dive like into the specifics of the non-negotiables, I will say that like in life, there's been certain things that have been like steady non-negotiables like through our whole marriage. But then like seasons of life happen. Like now, well, as we're going to talk about writing the book, this is a new thing for us, or for me, that non-negotiable of that time. But like, you know, some non-negotiables have changed in the different seasons of life that we've had.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the way you break down a day is like, obviously a day is 24 hours and you're sleeping for approximately 8 of those hours. And then you have the rest of the time to fill in what you want to do with that time. Most people have to pay bills and have to make money. So you have a job and your job might have structured hours and it might not. And then you have to work the rest of the things that you want to do around that. And then if you are married or have a significant other, you have to fit in another person. If you have a baby, you have to fit in another person. So there's a lot of things to think about. There's a lot of moving wheels and puzzle pieces to fit in to the hours that you have in the day. But overall, I feel like Nick and I are pretty passionate about not wasting time. And so most people, and I think if you feel like you have no time to do anything else, it would be really interesting to see your screen time. How much are you scrolling on social media? How much are you watching TV? If you took like a time log and wrote down what you were doing all the time, I think you would be shocked at how much time you waste. And waste is like probably not the right word, because maybe if you enjoy scrolling on TikTok and that's your me time, then that's fine. But don't say that you can't read for an hour if you were scrolling for an hour. Like you have to pick and choose what you're going to do in that time. And that's how you figure out like when you're going to have the time to do those things.
Yeah, when I've had a lot of one-on-one conversations with people about asking, like, when do I find the time? Like, one of the first things I talk about is, like, you know, we literally do not have any cable or TV subscriptions at all. Like, no Netflix, no nothing. But, like, I sometimes, as I'm saying that, I always say, like, I'm not saying that, like, having that stuff is bad or, like, there's zero judgment or whatever. That's just not what I choose to do. And, like, that's kind of what you're saying is, mm-hmm. like, you know, however you choose to break out your time to hit your non-negotiables is, you know, your choice totally. The problem comes is when somebody says, I have no time to do, you know, something that I want to make a non-negotiable. And then it's like, well, then do a time log and see, like, how you're actually using your time. And you're probably going to find, I think the vast majority of people will find that, like, you know what, I can probably steal some time back some places.
Yeah, I feel like if you want your me time to be like sitting on the couch, relaxing and watching a show, that's fine. It's what you want it to be. But then if you say, I can't read this book, and that's because you're watching a show, you have to pick one. Like a lot of times you're going to have to cut something out, and it just is, what is that going to be? And it doesn't have to be every single day. Like you could say 3 times a week or 1 time a week, I'm going to not watch my show and I'm going to read a book instead. And like Nick said, we are constantly changing. Like right now, this 1 hour non-negotiable me time is essential for him accomplishing the goal of writing the book. And then once he's done, maybe we might say, okay, instead of that time, we're going to go on a walk. And that would be like our non-negotiable, because we've had phases where it's like, okay, every day we're going on a walk. Like right now we're not doing that. And we don't have time to do that with all the other things going on. And that's okay.
Yeah, a lot of times with like your non-negotiables, like you're saying, it comes down to like the priorities that you decide to make.
Yes.
And so like once you make your priorities, then, those things get checked off. And, for me, I'm not really sad about the stuff that I'm not being able to do because I'm choosing to do the other stuff because I've chosen these are the things that I want to do in that time, at least the most. Would it be great if I had, 30 hours a day to where I could read an extra hour? Because that's a lot of the, now my writing time is, really cut into my reading time. But I want to write. And so I'm not reading as much at night.
I'm going to say this, but I also think that there is always a way to say someone else has it easier, or like my life isn't like that. It's always easy to come up with an excuse like, well, I don't have that job, or I don't have that ability, so I can't do that. Like if you're going to come up with excuses, then you're never going to accomplish those things. And it's easy. Everyone can come up with an excuse because that's way easier than actually doing something that's hard. I will say though that our lifestyle allows for us to have more flexibility, which may be why we can do this in this phase of life. Because think about it. If we were going to jobs separately and then we wanted to spend time as a family and you wanted to write this book, it would be much harder to find that time. But because we're spending enough time as a family here and there, but even still, we work other than taking care of Callan, like your hourly day, you work until 4 or 5, then we eat dinner, but we're doing that together as a family. We hang out. When Callan goes to bed at 7:30, that's when Nick's hour switches on and he writes from 7:30 to 8:30. That's typically how it goes. So we're still spending time together before you ever go for that 1 hour.
Right.
And Nick is very respectful and he sets his timer or something. He always comes upstairs at 8:30. He goes downstairs and writes in quiet. He comes up and it's always like clockwork. So he doesn't push the limits and he like still spends quality time with me, even though he has that 1 hour.
Yes.
Okay. Other non-negotiables. Are we done with the book talk?
Basically, I feel like
we could talk about this forever.
Well, yeah, just to clarify, like for me, the non-negotiable is every single night I am sitting down from 7:30. I'm getting 1 uninterrupted hour to write. That is the non-negotiable. Now, on the weekends, that can look a little bit different. If I have a hour during the weekend that, was during the day, but most of the time I try to keep it at that same time, no matter what. It's good for, with Callan's schedule. And like, I just know no matter what, I'm pretty much getting that time and that's when it's going to happen. If I get more on a weekend, great. Then I just got more words in, but I'm still doing it at that time. So that's that book writing non-negotiable for me.
Okay, non-negotiable with getting Callan to sleep for us has been a very regimented schedule. And I know some people really don't want a schedule. Someone like Ensley wanted to have a schedule, but she also wanted to be able to go hang out with her friends and like not be stuck at having to be home for like those naps and everything. So I feel like it depends on your lifestyle, but for us, like right now, we're still like in the new parts of it and we are okay with giving things up, saying we can't go somewhere so that he can be strict on his schedule, learn about those timings, and then as he gets more used to it, then I feel like we've become a little bit more lenient and saying, okay, well, he can be pushed on this nap or like do this one in the car. But for the first 4 months, really, we were very much strict on the schedule. And I know that can be controversial. Some people don't start a schedule yet. And that's everyone's decision is to do what's best for them and their baby. For us, okay, I don't know how to explain this, but I was trying to think about it. No one likes boundaries in the beginning because it's hard. No one wants to be told they can't do something. It's also kind of like crate training a dog. In the beginning, they cry, they don't want to do it. But now like Holly goes in her crate by herself all the time. Like that is her safe place. She loves it. If you tell someone, hey, you can't do this, the first time you do it, it always like is like a jolt to you. But then once they understand that they can't do that, it actually ends up being so much better for them. And I feel like that's the same situation with kids and babies, is setting the schedule is really hard. Like they don't understand. They really don't understand when they're babies. Like they don't know anything.
Right.
You're having to teach them when is night, when is day, where they're supposed to sleep, how to fall asleep, all these crazy things that are so hard. But if you can tough it out and like You just have to be really strict on like, okay, they're going to go in their crib at this time. We're going to put them down. And it might not work for a long time, but if you just keep doing it every single day, eventually it will kick on and it will work. We follow the Moms on Call book, and that has been the best schedule for us so far. And we do change it a little bit depending on like what we're doing, because we enjoy going to the gym at 8:00. We don't get back till 9, and the book said take a nap at 8:30. Like that wasn't going to work for us. So he takes his nap at 9. And so we had to bend it a little bit for our life, but overall, the non-negotiable is having the schedule and being strict on it so that they can learn when is night, when is day, when is nap time, when is playtime. And yeah, to me, that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. And I mean, once it, I guess, took effect, it really made all 3 of our lives so much better.
And now he's like clockwork. We can predict him to a T.
Yeah, and then when you can predict, now that we can predict him, now we feel more comfortable with being able to push things because he is more predictable. Like we knew we had to be out a little bit later the other day, so we let him sleep just a little bit longer on his 2 naps because he was going to have a little bit later bedtime, and that worked perfectly.
And as much as you want to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, like babies need a lot of sleep. And so like he can't stay awake longer than 2.5 hours right now. He's 5.5 months. So
except his like last stint in the evening.
And sometimes if he's distracted, like if we're out and about and he's like playing or something, we can push him a little bit longer. But for the most part, he is so tired. He like really needs to go to bed. So like if we try to make the rules, but sometimes, babies are going to baby. And
that's like the thing too with the schedule. For instance, like when it's like he's been up for, his time, now it's time to go down. That didn't, in the beginning especially, that didn't mean he was falling asleep right then. There was a lot of times where we had to deal, comforting him, crying and all this stuff, just like trying to start getting him used to going down at that time. And eventually it worked. Same thing with like, we didn't let him sleep really more than 2 hours, during the daytime stretches. And so we'd get him up even though he didn't necessarily want to get up. But now it's like, he literally does it without us having to, like, he wakes up almost on the dot. Sometimes we have to wake him up, but most of the time it's like he's clockwork. We are definitely lucky, and you can't control what type of kid you're gonna have. Some parents, like, their kids don't seem to work nearly that well on a schedule, but I think no matter what a schedule, even for a more difficult kid, is still gonna be good.
Callan does have a good temperament, and that is not something you get to choose or that you could make happen because of a schedule. So we are lucky with that. But a lot of people say that we're lucky that he's a good sleeper. And I don't think that was true, because he was not a good sleeper, and we had to get him in this routine to get him to be a good sleeper. And we have not had experience with other babies. We've only had him. So I can only talk about my experience, but from my experience, he wasn't good. And until we got him in a routine, did he become good. And another thing that was really a non-negotiable for us was putting him in the crib early on for his naps, so that it was never like a crazy space to him. And I think that the most magical thing that you can do is find that sweet spot, because you want them to go into their crib awake but not crying. And so in order to do that, they have to be tired but not overtired. So learning their wake windows and like how tired, like I said, he can go 2 to 2.5 hours. That's when he goes to sleep. And I'm not going to wait until he's crying and screaming that he's so tired to put him in there, or he'll never go down on his own.
And there's been a few times where it's like, it's an hour and a half and like the signs are there and it's like, we've put him down early.
Yeah. I think my tactics that I learned for if he needed comforting is that I would not always pick him up and try to rock him back to sleep, because he needs to learn how to put himself to sleep. And so what I would do is put my hand on him, give him little pats, and I would do the shh, 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 shh. And that would really calm him down. Obviously, if he's like out of control, sometimes there would be like nothing I could do. I would have to nurse him, or I would have to pick him up and rock him. But it's the consistency of doing the pats and the shushing that really got him to understand how to calm down and how to fall asleep on his own.
So I know we briefly mentioned the gym as a non-negotiable. It's not, like we said, we don't look at that as that's not our me time or whatever, but going to the gym itself, that workout is non-negotiable.
To an extent for me, like if I'm sore, if I'm tired, if I have tomorrow we're going to the aquarium, like I'm probably not going to go to the gym. Like it's something that is important to me, and I make sure I can go. Like around 4 times a week. But if I have something else going on, like I'm not gonna be like, I can't do that because I need to go to the gym. Like I'm still gonna live the life that I want to live, but it's important to me to go.
Yeah, well, and I mean, particularly when you're sore and you need a day off, like that's part of like, anything like working out where you're having to move your body and stuff. Sometimes you do need time off. And most of the time when like you're taking tomorrow off, for instance, like that's a perfect, you're already tired, you're already sore. That's just going to be your day off. It works well.
I feel like for us, like non-negotiable would be quality time and making sure that we hang out together and like do something that isn't just work and isn't just taking care of the baby. Like sometimes we want to go on a walk or we want to go like browse in Barnes and Noble or whatever that thing is that we want to do. We make sure that we spend some quality time together. And it doesn't even happen every day because realistically like life happens, but try to do it a few times a week. And I feel like that's really important. And then also for us, like communicating and making sure that like we're on the same page and like, hey, like I'm thinking I want to do this at some point, like what day would be good to do that, instead of just like someone dictating and saying like I'm doing this or like good luck with that. Like we work as a team and we really communicate about like the future, even like the week's plans and like, okay, these are the meals we want to cook, like who's going to do what. And I feel like that really eliminates having any tension in the house or like in our relationship, because we're not constantly wondering like who's going to do this or like, are they going to be mad if I want to go do this? Like we just communicate. And I think that is what is essential in having like a good, strong marriage for us.
Well, and Danielle definitely brought her, planning mindset into the marriage, and that because I've always been a good communicator, but I wasn't always the best planner. And so like now when you combine the two, good planning and good communication, I feel like there's really not that many questions. And, as long as I feel like where fights come in is when like expectations and reality don't meet up. And so most of the time our expectations, like we've talked about them. Mm-hmm. And so reality almost always, falls in line with what our expectations were.
It's super hard to have like hard conversations, but in the beginning of our marriage, we had to have those. And like, I had to sit down and be like, okay, these are the things that have to happen. Like this is a household. So like trash has to go out, dishes have to get put away, people have to cook dinner. And I had to say, look, I can't do all of these things. So where can you help me? And it was like we had to talk about, what do we enjoy doing? Obviously, no one enjoys like cleaning a toilet or taking out the trash. So sometimes you have to do things that you don't enjoy. But overall, like this is a household and we both live in it. So we had to figure out like how we were going to help each other to succeed. And then even still, like now that we like know whose responsibilities are who, sometimes when life gets busy or like now that we have a baby, like Nick saw that I was having to deal with Callan more times like in the past few weeks, and then like he went and like cleaned the toilets when that's not his job, but he wanted to help out. Like I think that that's also good that what your responsibilities are, but then sometimes you step up and help the other person out when they need help.
Yes, and that's keys to a good marriage.
I'm sure we could go on because I'm very scheduled, regimented, and I have a lot of non-negotiables in my life, but we can end it here.
Well, I feel like really you only have so much room for non-negotiables when it comes down to like when you have work and all that stuff is obviously non-negotiable. You got to go to work. You got to go do those things. Mm-hmm. The only other thing that we didn't talk about, we have non-negotiable of like church group, things like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we've been trying to do the last 6 years now. And that's sometimes like it feels like it's hard to fit in, but it's really important to us. And like we make sure that we do those things. So that's like the social aspect. I felt like we left out that part. That's where we spend a lot of our like social time and things like that.
Yeah.
But I challenge you to define the things that you like want to make non-negotiables in your life and just put them on your calendar, put them into your routine or whatever. And then, realize you're going to have to leave out some stuff. But, if you chose it as a non-negotiable, it's clearly important to you.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.